Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the decision session of the Executive Member for Housing, Planning and Safer Communities. It's Thursday, the 18th of July. My name's Councillor Pavlovic. I'm a little bit under the weather and I've got a chest infection, so if I have to break off to have a bit of a cough, please everybody in the room excuse me, and anybody that may be watching. Declarations of interest. I'm guessing there are none. No, and I have none. The minutes then of the decision session held on the 28th of February is agenda item 2. I'm happy with them. I'll sign them at the end of the meeting if that's all right with you. Agenda item 3 is public participation. We have two elements of public participation. One, a written representation from Councillor Waters, and one public speaker. I will call the public speaker second, and then I will read. No, having said that, I'm going to get Becky to read Councillor Waters' submission in full. I know he's made many representations to the planning department about this.
Whilst pleased at the issue of the logjam of Section 106 funds laid in the CYC coffers, totalling over 10 million has been officially raised with the petition to release the allocated funds to Osbaldwick Sports Club now being decided at an open public meeting, I shall confine my comments to matters within the Osbaldwick and Derwent ward. I fail to understand why ward councillors have to chase and indeed fight to get Section 106 funds, especially those specifically allocated to identified recipients from the mire of bureaucracy that is the CYC. Only a few years ago, I tracked down a simply forgotten allocation from a small development in Holby that was due to Dunnington Sports Club. CYC legal, and in this case, the sport and community teams, should be proactive in ensuring that monies are passed over as soon as possible. In the case of the Derwentthorpe Section 106 funds, the sport and leisure the Osbaldwick community has received very little in the way of benefit to offset the loss of 53 acres of wildlife and recreation area that was built on. Most sporting contributions went over to the CYC redevelopment of the Burnham school site. Had I not raised the disparity at Planning Committee in 2018, then I don't think the 10,986 allocation to Osbaldwick Sport Club would ever have been made from phase 3A approval, would have all have gone over to the Burnham site. Having secured this sum at Planning Committee and raised the same concerns with the CYC Burnham housing scheme, which then saw Osbaldwick Sports Club listed as a possible recipient of the £45,000 Section 106 funds, I was disappointed that the ambitions of the club, especially around providing enhanced changing facilities for the girls' football section and opening up of the upstairs of the buildings for such changing facilities, in combination with a viewing platform, have not met with any positive handover of funds. In the case of the long-delayed start at Derwentthorpe Phase 3A housing, I would argue that as soon as the development started, the funds could have been made available had the will been there by CYC. The Section 106 obligation has been very loosely worded, with funds being available prior to first occupation, leaving aside the lax enforcement or other trigger points related to Section 106 obligations on the wider Derwentthorpe development. This implies to me that any time from the start of works to the prior of first occupation, these funds should have been made available to Osbaldwick Sports Club. Similarly, the 45,000 CYC allocated from the Burnham housing scheme had to be loosely worded, and the reports state those funds have been available for distribution since May 2022. We've seen little effort made to allocate. I trust the Osbaldwick Sports Club chairman will give you a good appraisal of the work the club's volunteer do on maintaining in a superb condition the sports pitches and the work with members and youngsters in promoting sporting provision in the area. I look forward to the club's proposal being accepted and the available funds being released without further delay. Councillor Mark Waters.
Thank you, Becky. I really appreciate that. I would have struggled reading all that. Our second speaker is Keith Cartledge. I think that's the aforementioned. Could you move to the front, the head of the table, and press the microphone button, which looks like the Wi-Fi signal. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Really happy for you to be here and to represent Osbaldwick Sports Club. You have 3 minutes. Ben here will give me a 30-second, 30 seconds towards the end, and I'll just give you a little wave. Please start whenever you feel ready.
Thank you. My name is Keith Cartledge, and I'm actually the Honorary Secretary of Osbaldwick Sports Club. Mark, for some reason, keeps getting me mixed up, but I have been the Honorary Secretary, and I am basically the person who does most of the work at the sports club. I'll just go into a brief resume of what we do. We're a community volunteer-run sports club founded after the coming together of our cricket and football sections in 1972. But our roots go back to the late 1950s. We have teams playing football, cricket, bowls, darts and golf with ages from 5 to 85. We have accreditation from the FA and the ECB for our junior sport. All our teams are self-funding and rely on volunteers and sports sponsorship. The sports club pay the rent and upkeep of approximately 6 acres of sports field, but we fully own our clubhouse, which was originally built in the 1970s with a more modern 2-storey extension built in 1992, which features downstairs 2 changing rooms, an umpire's room, and a garage for our machinery. Upstairs, we currently have a cricket score box and storage space. Although this space was originally built as a function members' room, but a lack of funding after a legal battle with our landlord, our local parish council, led to these areas being underutilised and left ever since. We currently have 430 paid up members, including 65 junior footballers, 75 senior footballers, 30 junior cricketers and 30 senior cricketers, plus 4 bowls teams, 2 darts teams, a golf society. We have expanded our junior setup immensely since COVID, but we have had to turn away a female football team due to a shortage of facilities. But our whole objective, as laid out in a constitution, is for the furtherance of sport. All I ask is a simple and short process allowing access to these funds so that we can continue our work in the community, because we believe in sport as a way of bringing families and friends together and developing children into all-round decent young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And it's amazing work and incredibly popular sports club.
It is, yes.
We're going straight into that agenda item. So more than happy for you to stay. You don't have to stay, but more than happy for you to stay and hear the discussion.
I'll stay, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you'd like to take a seat at the side again, switch that off. Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you. And so therefore, without further ado, we move on to agenda item 4, which is the E-petition releasing section 106 funds to Osbaldwick Sports Club. We have a paper, and I'd like to welcome Becky Eads and Mark Baldry. If you could just introduce yourselves and your job titles, and then give me a brief précis of the issues and how we intend to move this forward.
So, Becky Eads, Head of Planning and Development Services.
Mark Baldry, Principal Development Projects Officer.
I'll go straight into it. Yep.
Thank you. Yes.
So the E-petition received by the council requests that a series of monies, which the signatures believe to be held by the council and are released to Osbaldwick Sports Club Specifically, it requests that £10,986 of section 106 funds allocated to Osbaldwick Sports Club are released. The petition then goes on to request that further allocations are made to Osbaldwick Sports Club from potentially the £45,000 from the Burnham Housing Scheme and the developed Derwentthorpe Phase 5 Section 106 agreement. So your report explains how 106 obligations work, what they're for, in terms of there to assist with mitigating any impacts of the developments. They've got to be reasonable and relatable.
Yeah.
It then talks about how we then collect the money and how once we receive it, we will then work with the relevant services to distribute the money to ensure that it's spent in line with any legal agreement.
Yeah, but Becky, just working on this, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt,
it's fine.
but just working on the assumption that not everybody has read the papers.
Oh, sorry.
I think it would be really helpful if you could just give us a super quick précis of how collecting the 106 contribution happens, when it happens, and what happens after it's been collected. Sorry, I should. Sorry, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as part of the planning application process, we negotiate mitigation measures, and they can either be on-site mitigation measures or they can be contributions of some form. In this case, it is with regard to the contributions. The contributions have got to be directly relatable. When the planning permission gets approved, the 106 gets signed. Part of the 106 will have triggers within it as to when these contributions will be made to the council. They're based on a number of factors. Usually with housing development contribution, it will relate to occupation, because obviously you've got to sell houses to make the money to then have the contribution available.
Right.
That's how it works usually. But then it may be, given the size of the development, it may be phased, so it may be after 100 houses, 200 houses. Each 106 is different.
Yeah.
It's written based on the scheme and what the mitigation measures are required. So the developer will have that legal agreement in front of them and they will know when their triggers are hit. We have an officer that monitors 106s specifically. That's their job, and they go out and monitor whether or not there's been occupation, whether or not it's staff on site. All that happens within the process. Once we know that that trigger has been hit, we would hope they would come to us, which usually happens, or we will contact them and arrange for said contribution to be paid. That then comes into our finance department, who let us know as the receiving service that we have received the money. We then ensure that it's in line with the 106, that the correct amount of money is being received, the correct amount of time. We do all those checks. We then go to the relevant service area, in this case, the community sports team, inform them that the money is being received. And they have there's a whole form process to fill out where they tell us that what they're going to spend it on. They have to give that back to us, we agree it, and then the money is released.
Yeah.
Once that money is released and it's been spent, they then have to come back to us and tell us and confirm that that's what the money's been spent on.
Yeah, all right, that's great. So the specifics around this Derwent, this £10,986 relates to one project, and that is, I believe, the Derwentthorpe development. What was the section 106 agreement that was written? Is it in respect of what you've just said, that the money will be released on first occupation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
19, isn't it?
Not first sale or not completion of housing?
So the agreement secured as phase 3A off-site recreational facilities contribution. Within the agreement, it subsequently defined the sum as 25,986, which is index linked.
Yeah.
And then it says paragraph 5 of the first schedule requires the developer to pay this contribution to the council prior to the occupation of the first residential unit within the phase 3A development. So that's when it's,
So it's the first, it's not
First
100, it's not 100,
occupation.
it's not the first 100 houses, it's not
No,
the first 200.
first occupation,
the very
that
first-
sum of money,
yeah.
yeah.
So can you tell us what stage they're at the moment?
So they are on with building the houses, but as yet there has been no occupation,
Right.
as far as we're aware, in terms of any of the houses.
Has there been any sales? Has there been any completions?
Sales, we're aware that there's been one sale.
So there's one sale, so there's
Yeah.
potentially an occupation coming relatively.
Relatively.
I
We
mean,
will check,
conveyancing and
yeah,
all the
but
rest of it.
we have
but,
that dialogue with them and
yeah.
we will check.
So, and just for complete and utter clarity, there is no, what is the legal basis? Let me put it another way. What is the legal basis for making a developer pay the money before they've hit the trigger?
There is no legal basis.
No.
We couldn't reasonably ask them to do that.
Which is why there's been this delay, because you've been waiting for the houses to be, the first lot of houses to be completed, sold,
Yeah.
and then for the first person to move in.
Yes.
And we're now at that stage,
Almost, yeah.
well, apart from the last bit,
Yes.
the person moving
Yes.
in, the houses have been built, the one's been sold, and therefore the prospect is, yeah. So, in respect of the E-petition, which is a request for the money to be released immediately, there's no legal basis that the council could justifiably go to the developer and say, we want this money in advance because Osbaldwick Sports Club or any other recipient of 106 money needs it.
No,
No. So we absolutely, and you know, I have to conclude that there is no lack of willingness to give Osbaldwick this money. There's been no legal basis for us to give them the money before now, but the process is moving on, and I can't say if it's going to be 2 months, if it's going to be 3 months, but it should be relatively soon. And although there is a bureaucratic process of actually either requesting or receiving the money, it then going to the accountants, then going to you sign it off. It then goes back to the finance team,
yeah.
who then distribute it. With a bit of luck and a following wind, Osbaldwick Sports Club will get their £10,986 relatively shortly.
Hopefully, subject to first occupation.
Subject to first occupation, but I mean, there's a vested interest on the developers to get that property. So, although I couldn't be sorrier that there's no mechanism for us to be able to release this money to you now, I am really hopeful that you're going to get it incredibly soon. So, thank you, and thank you to the officers for preparing this and coming here today and explaining it so very clearly and very fully. So that concludes that agenda item. Were you happy with the conclusions that I've come to? Yeah, and you can write that up. Yeah, fantastic. You can leave if you'd like to. And Keith, thank you very much for your time. And again, I just want to commend the work of the sports club, and invite me down sometime. I'll come for the darts night. So, excuse me. Without further ado, we move on to agenda item. 1 sec. Agenda item 5. This is leveraging more retrofit investment into York Energy Company Obligation Wave 4 and Great British Insulation Scheme LA Flex arrangement. Now there's a title. Did anybody understand a single word of that apart from perhaps the word retrofit and investment? So I'm going to ask the officers. We've got Anthony Dean, we've got Michael Jones, and we've got Pauline Stutchfield to introduce themselves, introduce the report, explain the context and what you want me to do.
Hello, I'm Michael Jones. I'm the Head of Housing Delivery and Asset Management here at City of York Council.
I'm Anthony Dean. I'm the Healthy and Sustainable Homes Manager here at City of York Council.
And I'm Pauline Stutchfield, Director of Housing and Communities, newly in post.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm guessing it's Anthony that's going to be leading on this. Anthony, can you explain to the watching thousands?
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What this is about?
Well, the report before you today is really all about aiming to improve the offering that the council can give residents and homeowners in York to improve their properties and maximising available finances to improve energy efficiency measures, help people save money on their fuel bills, reduce carbon emissions and contribute towards the council's ambition for York to be a net zero and climate ready city by 2030. So the proposals seek approval for the formation of a partnership with a company called Agility Eco to deliver something called the Energy Company Obligation for Flex, more commonly known as Eco4 funding scheme, which basically is a government funded scheme which enables local authorities to access funds to tackle fuel poverty, and it does so by placing an obligation on energy companies to deliver energy efficiency measures to domestic properties, particularly focusing on those properties that are in the kind of lowest kind of bands in terms of the energy rating bands of E, D through to G, and targeting particularly those people who are in energy inefficient properties and people who are in household fuel poverty. The schemes themselves are kind of delivered and administered by the local authorities, but no funding is provided to local authorities to do so. So it's an obligation which local authorities can kind of opt into, and we are requesting approval to opt into this, but using a company called Agility Eco to actually deliver and do a lot of the administration on behalf of the council in order to save the council some time and energy in achieving this at no cost to the council, but also therefore enabling us to offer something to our residents over and above existing schemes that we're already offering and delivering as a local authority. Agility Eco will undertake the day-to-day management of the scheme and assisting in terms of finding suitable people who are able to qualify for works. And then council officers will be involved in some aspects of the administration in terms of demonstrating their suitability for receiving funding. But Agility Eco will do the majority of the work on our behalf. And this is something that they do for other local authorities across the country. So for me, I say ultimately the proposed recommendations are there to try and provide a further positive aspect for residents and for the council in achieving our ambitions. And the recommendations are that we would approve the decision, in paragraph 14 of the decision report specifically talks about the recommendations and reasons, which ultimately are that we approve the formation of a partnership with Agility Eco to deliver the scheme on our behalf. And to sign the necessary contracts, memorandums of understanding, and also for something called a statement of intent for publication, which is something we have a legal obligation to do. If we adopt the scheme, we have to put an obligation on our website, and that's provided also within the report. And we would be wanting that to be confirmed as being acceptable and that to be published. So that effectively is what it's about. It's about delivering energy efficiency measures in York properties for those on the lower household income, in fuel poverty, and those who also do have some form of health-related disability or illness which adversely affects them, to try and improve energy efficiency reduce their bills and improve health outcomes.
Thank you so much. That was really clear and understandable. Michael, Pauline, do you have anything that you want to add? So I've got a couple of questions. So we're talking about people in the private sector, homeowners and people in private rented potentially, or is it just to homeowners?
It's principally aimed at people who are actually, I think it's regardless of their status. I think it can be, principally it is at those privately owned properties, but private rented can. But again, the actual terms of reference of who was actually eligible within the actual scheme itself, there are a whole series of criteria that determine about household income.
Yeah.
So you have to be on a certain level of income or some form of health related issue, which therefore would make you qualify for the grant funding that comes through the Eco4 scheme.
Right, that's great. And how are we going to either identify these groups of individuals that are that reach a certain financial threshold and have energy inefficient homes, or are we expecting them to know about this arrangement and come to us for Agility to work with them? So what's the profiling, what's the targeting going to look like?
So in terms of if this is were approved, then we would be issuing a statement of intent on the website. We would also then be updating our website itself, which provides a whole series of offerings that we already have in terms of schemes that people can opt into, and it would add a further offering on that in terms of the Eco4 scheme. We would also then be kind of doing some form of publicity press release to enable it to be a little bit better known about that. We do already have a number of people who've already contacted us about it and wanting to inquire about it. So the hope is that it will be through some initial publicity, through events that we're running. So the Health and Sustainable Homes team, we do a number of events already at promoting schemes that we do already, and this would be just something that we would be able to add as a further offering to the residents of York.
So you could, for example, take some road shows out into the communities.
Yeah, we're already doing that. Already doing that, and we can just add this as something else to that.
Yeah. And is there any prospect of getting something about this put in the magazine that goes to all householders?
That will be something we can look at. I don't know exactly the process to enable us to do that, but yes, we can absolutely. We would want to publicise it as best we can,
exactly,
to make the most of it
as widely as possible to as wide a group of people as possible, because as we know, fuel poverty and energy inefficient homes not just has an impact on people's health and well-being, but it also impacts on climate change as well. And if we can help people save money, improve their health conditions through having warmer, drier homes, and ideally save some money at the same time, then it's kind of a win-win-win.
Absolutely.
So you're asking me to do 4 things. I'm going to read them out. To approve the attached statement of intent for publication, indicating the council's intention to receive Eco4 and Great British Insulation Scheme LA Flex applications from approved partners. Secondly, to support the creation of a partnership with Agility Eco through the signing of a memorandum of understanding and a data sharing agreement between the council and Agility Eco. Thirdly, to enter into a customer data sharing arrangement with the Gas and Electricity Markets Authority, known as Ofgem, who are the data monitor of the scheme through the signing of a data sharing agreement. And finally, to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities and their delegated officers in consultation with the Director of Governance and their delegated officers to negotiate the provisions and conclude the entry into the proposed Memorandum of Understanding and Data Sharing Agreements. And I'm very happy to do that. This is an exceptionally good news story, not just for the council in as much as it's no cost to the council, but it's accessing government funding, which is going directly to our residents. And you can't really ask for a lot more than that. So thank you for all the work you've put into this. It's been exceptional and exemplary. And I really look forward to getting perhaps an evaluation at some time, coming to a scrutiny committee on the take-up of this scheme and how it's gone, perhaps as part of a wider retrofitting paper. Is that okay? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, that's the end of our agenda items. I've got no urgent other business. So I will call this meeting to a close at 4:03. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.